りおしまい。
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Get the Mic, the only show where your host on the left, Owl,
And your host on the right, Brock.
dissect fiction for its mythological significance. In this episode, we're going to be talking about episode of 110? 110, I almost said 101. 110 of Dragon Ball. Piccolo closes in. Now, before we get started, if you enjoy the show, please give us a like and subscribe with that red subscribe button. We upload new episodes Mondays and Thursdays to YouTube, Tuesdays and Fridays to Rumble, so please check us out on those platforms. Now, without further ado, on to the show. So, episode 110 starts with clouds rolling in, and it begins to rain on Goku and Piccolo's fight. Piccolo easily overpowers Goku and knocks him to the ground, telling him to bow down like the scum that he is. When Goku replies with never, the rain lets up. Piccolo then begins to use a powerful wave technique that surrounds Goku. Goku closes his eyes and dodges the attack, launching himself skyward. But when he attempts a plunging kick towards Piccolo, he's struck by a second attack midair that knocks him unconscious. Goku falls to the ground lifeless, and Piccolo checks to see that his heart has indeed stopped. Piccolo then plucks the Dragon Ball from around Goku's neck and flies back up to the ship and heads inside. Pilaf then asks if Piccolo will become more powerful once he gets his wish, eternal youth, and Piano tells him that he will become far, far stronger. So, a couple things here, and by a couple I mean like 5. So the first thing, the rain that we see, goes to show not only that the tides have turned, let's say, but that nature is not really on Goku's side in this instance. This is something where Goku is in that earthly realm, that he is kind of separated from that idea of cosmic help.
Yeah, Goku is
Which,
out
by the
here in the
way,
rain by himself now.
is awful and super, because cosmic help apparently is how he survives this, but go on.
I don't even want to talk about that.
No, let's just skip over it.
Yeah, I like that. Immediately as this episode starts, we see everyone starts witnessing this rain coming down, and it's playing into that sort of cliched, like the hero's about to get defeated in the rain situation. But when Goku doesn't give up, whenever he gets back up and he says that he won't kneel to Piccolo, the rain just stops and it looks brighter. And the rain doesn't come back until Goku's actually defeated.
Yes. And Also, we have to remember what symbolically rain can be, right? It's that reflective and almost rebirth, right? And Goku is literally undergoing the process that Yajirobe refuses to go
Right.
through.
He's going to die, right? He's putting himself in the position to die so that he can integrate the unconscious, the
But
unknown.
you know what it is too that dies here because he stops doing this later. His the part of them that needs to die and that does die here is that vengeful and revengeful part of himself, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, think later on, I don't think he gets into a verbal spat with Piccolo, and especially when he grows up, he really stops that. But I think, as we see here, that as one death, only one a death of many that Goku will experience in this arc, this is transforming him in a positive way, and it's what as we said, Yajirobe refuses to undergo.
And this is the natural conclusion, right? This is what his vengeance has brought him here, in acting purely upon vengeance and not heeding the
Separated
wisdom
from
of
the
his father.
cosmic, the spiritual father. Because think if Roshi and them were all together, it'd be a much better chance, but also the story wouldn't be as meaningful because we wouldn't be going through this process.
Right. So Goku has to die in the face of this. And
Exactly.
this is what wearing the Dragon Ball is, right? This is, can you
I don't even want to say
handle
wearing
this-
the Dragon Ball. I want to say seeking that. This is what seeking the Dragon Balls is.
being in the
To
process
seek
of
truth and seek
gathering
wisdom.
the Dragon Balls, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what he's wearing, right?
Mhm.
Wearing around his neck is that the responsibility of being on that path. And well, now Goku is not strong enough. Right? There's a next level that he needs to grapple with before he can even do this.
And so the
To even
part
have
that,
one.
the weak part of himself, the morally weak, the weak character of himself has to be.
He's not pure
eliminated.
enough to face something like Piccolo.
And so he's, as a piece of iron, right now he's getting hammered out of all the impurities, right? And so I do also want to mention, so the rain letting up, that's what we were just talking about. The closing his eyes and dodging the attack. This is a Korin thing.
Yeah.
This is, now that he's mapped a certain amount of Piccolo, he's able to use this. But as we can see, Goku's spirit is not fortuitous enough to survive this instantiation of Piccolo. Or to last, let's say.
It is interesting, too, because it reminds me of multiple other attacks we've seen from Goku's enemies where they emanate either something binding or something enveloping outside of themselves, and it sort of threatens to envelop Goku, but it can't do it, right? Even the mummy, whenever
the mummy, the Garuru gum,
yeah, there's this constant like, no, I'm going to confine you, I'm going to define you, and Goku surprises that anti-hero
and
spirit.
why is
right?
that? And why does Dragon Ball last forever? Because the spirit of the hero, the value in that is bottomless, not meaningless.
Yeah,
there's no end.
It's limitless
to the meaning that there, right?
Undefinable, right?
And so, yeah, the constraint they always try to put on him never works. But him dodging that is what leads to his downfall. And this is something we saw. Was it against Krillin? It may have been against Krillin, where Goku is in the air and he's unable to dodge an attack, something like that.
It happens a couple of times. It actually, in the preliminaries, is a gag. Not really a gag, but it's played as a gag whenever he uses his breath to stop himself midair, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the manipulation of that is something he understands, but that isn't enough to protect him from what
he's not
what
even,
this attack is.
He's
right?
not even dodging it. He's
avoiding
revenge.
It. Yeah.
He's not even avoiding it because the second thing he tries to attack again. He's
through his
mode,
revenge,
right?
he's able to avoid it at first, but
that's when he's adopting the Korin lessons, though. That's not revenge, I would say, right?
Right. Well, he
mapping.
So I wanted to point
one
out,
is mapping,
yeah,
and one is vengeance.
So that's why I wanted to point out the emanation, right? And it looks like he's clearing his mind whenever Piccolo is doing this. And so that initial attack is something that Goku's able to avoid because he's not being constrained. He's not being oppressed by the
He's
attack.
also paying attention.
He's focusing on the right thing, right?
And
But
then when he doesn't,
right, whenever he takes on that aggressor role, whenever he's taking his revenge, that's whenever he sets himself up to fall, right?
And he does.
Because
lifeless, seemingly.
Because that's the motive being that is more Piccolo's territory, to be vengeful. It's like,
It's something
you're a
he knows.
vengeful spirit. I know
where you're headed. I know where you're going. I know all that, right? Because
he's like, I have a vengeance towards this world. Like, you have a vengeance towards someone for one death. I have a vengeance towards being.
Exactly.
And so it's something that while Goku's on that axis, he gets overpowered immediately to the point that he's killed.
And this is like we've said, it's a symbolic death that kills off the weak parts of Goku. And it's so much so that Goku his heart actually stops. And I think it's the heart for a reason. It's not like he doesn't check his breath or anything like that, but the heart is that passion. Symbolically it is the heart of it. I don't even know. Like that's even a
the
phrase,
motivating
right?
core, the passion.
It's the core of it, right? It's
the foundation.
The foundation, the broken down into its essential parts, so the most important piece, all of those things, right? And so it's checked, and it regulates your tempo. It's constantly beating in a tempo, and it's your tempo, and like a lot of heartbeats are different. Like not everyone, but a bunch of people have different kinds of rates and things like that.
It's your pattern.
It's your pattern. And so to make sure that his pattern is snuffed out from the world, he goes down to check.
Yeah.
And so he then plucks that Dragon Ball from Goku. This is to say that the wisdom gained is not necessarily instantiated in the ball. Goku's going to gain some wisdom already from it. But for Piccolo in particular, this is the ability to, let's say, hoard, or I don't want to say hoard, but the ability to manipulate the wisdom gained by others for their own ends. I think of like Jurassic Park, for example.
Yeah. Piccolo taking this from Goku also is to say, at least by the way that he sees it, even if Goku were to live, he would be prey now. His body is broken. So he leaves him broken, and he also leaves him purposeless, in a sense. And Goku does need to regain...
Heartless. At least
from what he's about to ask of Yajirobe, right? He knows he needs to regain that direction, that ability to orient himself, which has been taken away from him symbolically by him taking that Dragon Ball.
Yes, exactly. And let's say his progress on the hunt for truth has been damaged by it.
Yeah.
And what, let's say, and this isn't even something Piccolo is consciously doing because he doesn't need to even worry about it, but what is a demoralizing factor in it but the regression, right? And so Pilaf kind of ends us out here and asks if Piccolo will be more powerful in his youth, and they're all scared because they're starting to realize the depths of their, well, maybe not even starting, they've already realized it. They know it's just around the corner, that once he's more powerful, even before that, he might just throw him out.
This is where Pilaf realizes that he's like a dog chasing a car, and he doesn't know what he would do if he caught it, right? Because Goku is that anchor that stops something like Piccolo from existing, and without that there, Pilaf doesn't know how bad things could be.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
And so he's entered into a realm of completely unknown strength. And so not only is he unable to physically challenge Piccolo, but he doesn't know of anyone, period, who could. So
especially because
has become hopeless.
The most powerful person he knows, and the person that he should actually admire, Goku, has actually been destroyed by Piccolo. So yeah. And so we end out with that. And As Pilaf's ship is flying away, still in the rain, Yajirobe goes to Goku's body to give him a burial. However, Goku begins to stir before beginning to wake up. Yajirobe carries Goku to water so that he can drink. Actually, he dunks his whole head in there, which is hilarious. Goku then asks Yajirobe to take him to Korin's tower since he can't move his body. Yajirobe agrees on the condition that when they arrive, he can eat as much as he wants. Elsewhere, Roshi and the Crane Boys find their 5th Dragon Ball. Roshi then checks the Dragon radar and sees that someone has collected the final 2 balls. Tien then senses that Piccolo is coming. And meanwhile, back in Yajirobe's car, Yajirobe tells Goku of the legend of Demon King Piccolo, recalling that he was sealed away by a martial arts master. There it is. I hate dying more than anything else. So it's significant to note too. Well, I guess we'll just go one in order. So Yajirobe first off shows here that even though he's a coward, he's not completely devoid of good character traits.
Yes.
After all, we know that he does honor a code for himself, maybe even tradition to an extent, because he is a samurai. And so he offers or starts to try and get a burial going for Goku, right? And that's a good thing. That's a good indicator of how Goku won over Yajirobe's friendship with his elevation of the human spirit fighting against the unfightable,
right,
or
his
the
courage.
unwinnable. And so here, Yajirobe has really become his ally, even though a couple episodes he was pretty much his enemy. And so that whole aspect of it too goes to show that Yajirobe is complex characters. They're not one note characters in Dragon Ball. I don't think they really exist.
No, and Yajirobe's not even finished in Dragon Ball. It continues into Z.
Exactly. Especially. And so when he begins to stir, Yajirobe immediately offers to help him, right? He takes him to water so he can drink and calm down and try and start healing. And he even agrees to take him across the world, basically. They're not close at all to Korin's tower. And so, taking him to Korin's tower is a lot of effort, and Yajirobe agrees to do that. But I also think that it's because Yajirobe before this was purposeless.
Exactly.
This is actually helping Yajirobe because Goku's giving him something that he admires, that he thinks is worth saving. He thinks Goku is worth saving. And that's to say something, because Yajirobe doesn't think anything's worth a lot in the beginning.
Yeah, there is this elevation when you realize that there's something worth saving above your own life. Mm-hmm. Ideas that transcend the self.
Exactly. And so, I mean, he's also hungry, let's be honest.
He also hunger.
And so then I think we'll go to the Crane Boys next. They're looking for the Dragon Ball, and it's worthy to mention that it is raining there as well.
Yes.
And that kind of rebirth is happening as we see who redeems Roshi's mistake, but the innocence of Tien, right?
Exactly. Which is that Chaozu finds the ball and holds it up, and then it glows.
And then it glows to know that its proper owner has actually got it.
Right.
And Tien has gained the wisdom that the spiritual father cannot do the seeking of truth for the heroic spirit. It must be the heroic spirit that seeks the truth.
They have to act it out on their own.
They have to embody it on their own, yeah.
And so Tien has to go out in the weeds.
Yep.
Out in the rain, out in the weather.
For it. Yeah.
And they have to actually find it physically.
Exactly. And then Tien senses Piccolo's coming. This is kind of, we're starting to get into the realm where we're going to be like, oh, I sense this person. I sense this person. And it's
Piccolo's the first one to have an aura so strong that it's evident.
Right. And it is to say that we're getting to a point where these spirits emanate far beyond their reach. And we know that this can happen in the real world as well. Think about, let's say, Alexander the Great, right? His preeminence exceeded his actual being. People thought he was a god.
Yeah.
And so That's exactly it. And you and the sense here that he can sense when that powerful the spirit is around. And the last thing we're going to mention is the story of Demon King Piccolo and the fact that Yajirobe hates dying. So the legend of King Piccolo, according to Yajirobe, is just like this evil Piccolo guy came and ruled the world for a while, but he was sealed away by a martial arts master. And Yajirobe, in fact, the way he tells it in the lack of awareness of the cycle that's present in it, um, goes to show the next thing, which Yajirobe pretty much puts an exclamation point on that by saying he hates dying, right? And the fact that the martial artist died to seal away King Piccolo is
Exactly.
lost on
Yeah.
him. Completely lost
He
on him.
doesn't understand that the reason that or the fact that he hates dying is what separates him from being able to be on that level to contend with Piccolo in the first place.
Exactly. And he doesn't even really want to contend with Piccolo because that's not his purpose. There's no meaning for him in it. And that's because he's not trying to redeem Blind Father, because he doesn't have that kind of reverence for that spirit, like we said. And so they are starting to travel to Corrin's Tower, and meanwhile we get back to the Roshi crew. So Roshi and the Crane boys land in a clearing, and they're getting ready for their final confrontation with Piccolo. And they bury the Dragon Balls underground. Roshi then tells them of his plan, which we'll get into in a second, that he and Tien will steal the Dragon Balls and throw them to Chaozu so he can make the wish. They hide in some rock formations and watch as Piccolo arrives overhead in Pilaf's airship. Tien then sees Piccolo swallow the two balls, deliberately thwarting their plans even though he didn't know about them. Roshi then declares that he will have to fight Piccolo himself, forbidding Tien or Chaozu from getting involved. When Tien refuses, Roshi knocks him out and tells Chaozu not to come out, no matter what. He then steps out into the open and calls out to Piccolo, telling him to come down, and calling him by name. Piccolo obliges, and the two square off for the second time.
This time it's for real.
This time it's personal. So, we're just going to hit the bullet points here. Roshi's plan. I don't know if that was ever the plan. I think the Mafubo was always the plan.
It pretty much always comes down to it, and I think he didn't want Tien to know that that was what he was planning, because Tien is oriented in such a way that he would watch him learn how to do it immediately and do it himself. That's what Tien does. And
Right.
so he wants to protect Tien's life.
Yes. Well, and especially because Tien is not going to be able to wield the wisdom of the sages right properly at this level, and it takes him a while to learn it later on. So, I mean, it's just such a all right. Here's the plan. We're gonna just take him and throw him to Chaozu.
All right, let's get in a hiding position and
it's so ill thought out, and it's very much seems in the way Roshi's dressed and the way he's been acting in the last episode, it very much seems that he's ready to take his proper place among the spiritual fathers.
You know, it's funny. I like that you said ill thought out, because that is one of those things from the last episode that translated so poorly, which was whenever they're flying over the fifth ball. In the English translation, Roshi says, "Hey, maybe that's the one that stole the ball. Let's go give him a visit. Like, let's go there because it's probably him. Let's go visit him." And he's just like flipping about it, but it doesn't make sense because Roshi is much more cautious. He's like, "Here's the plan.
Right.
We can't engage at all." And so there's a level of seriousness in the original translation that just does not come through at all.
Definitely. And there like we said, there's been some comic relief for sure, but the way it's broken up is more like the Lord of the Rings, where the drama is still present and heavy throughout each scene, and there are only a couple of comic relief moments in the episode, and it doesn't change the tone of the episode either. Whereas in the dub, man, is it tone shattering oftentimes. And so Right, and I think Roshi here is ready to take his place among the spiritual ancestors as um someone who's sealed away the evil in the world, right? Particularly since his hero, let's say, has failed.
Right. And this is him saying, well, regardless of my insufficiencies, it is my duty, it is my responsibility to face this head on
Exactly, yes.
and to do what my
Whatever
master
he
before
can.
me did when he was called upon to do it, right? Which is to make the best sacrifice, right? The best sacrifice you can make, which is self-sacrifice in service of love to defeat evil, right?
And so we're going to see how that pans out in the next episode. But before we do, there's two things left. So the first thing is swallowing the 2 Dragon Balls. So Piccolo knows that
they
it's
would
almost
try to do that.
monolithic in the way that Piccolo operates, because he knows he's all encompassing. He's everything to the cause. His cause, piano, everything like that. He's not going to send them to go do it. He's also pretty confident in his abilities, so the best place for him to hide his value or the wisdom is in himself, right? It's that idea of cutting open the dragon and finding treasure inside, whatever.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I said that it was like deliberate, because he explicitly says they would obviously try to take these without fighting me because they can't defeat me. Mm-hmm. So I have to keep him close. And then he swallows them.
Right? And that's part of it, right? That's part of him being able to define using that logos half of it for a malicious purpose,
right?
Defining them as their motives, and not acting in a completely chaotic way, right? And it's that merger of the two that makes it so unholy. And then the last thing is Tien getting knocked out. So Tien, he wants to fight. He actually calls Roshi a fool for not wanting him to fight. He takes off his shirt and he's all ready to go.
He's ready to go. He pulled the t-shirt off.
Now, to think about it too, I mean, Tien is about as strong as Goku at this point. And so we could conceive like, oh, Tien, Roshi, they might have a chance, but they don't. It
would definitely be a help, right?
It would be a help. But they don't actually have a chance is the thing, because neither of them have instantiated themselves as heroic spirits. So they're not going to be able to actually defeat Piccolo in the way that needs to be defeated unless Roshi's able to banish him away again.
Which is the only option.
Because Tien hasn't collected all 7 Dragon Balls. He's
but
not
here's
a hero
thing
yet.
now.
He hasn't gone through the whole panties debacle that Goku did.
But here's the thing, too. There's no option to bring back Krillin if he's sealed away with the Mafuba.
That's true.
So this has to be a defeat or an actual loss of Krillin in the world.
Well, and not only Krillin, but all the other fighters, right? And
yeah.
and that's the limit. The spiritual father can't bring them back. That is not his role. He does not defeat death. In fact, oftentimes he succumbs to it or surrenders to it. Mm-hmm. Think about Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Right.
I really do not like the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. I just want to say that right now as an aside. It really makes me mad because I'm thinking, when I say Obi-Wan Kenobi, I think about Alec Guinness. I'm not trashing the prequels, but that's who Obi-Wan Kenobi is. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Anyways,
you'll hear about that soon enough.
He does that exact thing, right? He surrenders himself to the Force, allows himself to get killed by Darth Vader, let's say, and ascends to a more spiritual realm of being. And that's what Roshi is trying to do here, and we'll see if he's successful on the next episode. That's a great place to leave off.
I think so. I think it's a really good analog.
So, if you liked what you heard, please give us a like. Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell for notifications if you so choose. We upload new episodes on Mondays and Thursdays to YouTube and Tuesdays and Fridays to Rumble, so follow us on those platforms if you would please. I'm your host on the left, Owl.
I'm your host on the right, Brock.
And we hope you guys have a good night and you enjoyed the episode.
violent electrical storm erupted in the skies of the planet I was on. I welcomed it. Like it was an outward manifestation of the storm that was raging inside of me. I was determined to survive. About your son. He doesn't